What's the most high-stakes 21st birthday gift you can possibly imagine? A car? A trip? Try a $50 million hotel empire? That's what my grandma gave me. But this isn't just a story about getting rich, it's about what happens when the people who are supposed to love you most try to steal it all. If you love stories about family drama and epic justice, hit that subscribe button right now, because you won't believe how this ends. The leather folder sat in front of me, its weight feeling as heavy as a heartbeat. Inside were the deeds, the contracts, the keys to a kingdom. My grandma, Sharon Bennett, had just handed me her $50 million hotel empire. My name, Sophia, was on every line. I was 21 years old, and I was the new owner. Before I could even take a full breath, before the ink felt dry, the front door opened. The sound of the lock turning felt impossible. My mother, Brenda, walked in, and right behind her, like a polished shadow, was her new husband, Scott. He was a business consultant who always smelled like cheap cologne and bad investments, and he was everything my mother thought success looked like. "Sophia, darling," my mother said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. She glanced at the heavy folder on the table. "We heard the news. We think it's wonderful," Scott chimed in, his voice oily and smooth. "But a $50 million portfolio, that's a lot for someone still in school. We think we should manage it together, as a family." I looked from his smug face to my mother's expectant one. They saw the folder, but they didn't see me. They saw a payday, not a person. "As a family," I repeated. The word felt wrong in my mouth. "That's not going to happen," I said, my voice quieter than I expected, but firm. "Grandma put me in charge. I'm the owner now." My mother's smile vanished. The air in the room went from cold to Arctic. "What did you just say?" I said. "I'm the owner," I repeated, standing up, "and I won't be managing it with you." Her face, so carefully constructed, cracked. The rage was instant and blinding. "You ungrateful little brat," she hissed. "After everything I've done for you? Fine, if you're the owner now, then you can. Get out, pack your bags and leave this house." Can you even imagine that? Being given the gift of a lifetime, only to have your own mother try to steal it and kick you out in the same breath. What would you have done in that moment? Let me know in the comments below. And please hit that like button if you're already hooked. Here's the twist, though. I didn't argue, I didn't cry, I didn't even move. I just looked at her, because I knew something they didn't. This entire night wasn't about their greedy demands. It was about my grandma's next move, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that her move was the one that would end their little performance for good. What did I know, and who exactly is my grandmother? Share this with a friend, because in part 2, I'm going to introduce you to the woman who built an empire and taught me exactly how to defend it. So, who's my grandmother? And why wasn't I terrified when my mother threatened to throw me out? When people look at me now, they see the hotel empire, the marble floors, the glass lobbies, the Bennett name etched in gold above the entrance. But what they don't see is the noise, the rot that used to live inside this family. My grandmother, Sharon Bennett, built everything from a single, run-down roadside motel in Vermont. She was 21 then. My age now. Everyone called her foolish. They said she was a woman playing in a man's world. But she turned all those doubts into brick and revenue. By the time I was born, the Bennett collection was a name whispered with envy. My mother, Brenda, inherited none of Grandma's patience, only her pride. To her, success wasn't about building. It was about being seen. She loved camera flashes more than blueprints. She loved control more than she loved her own family. My father, Mark, was the opposite. He was the calm, steady one, a man who believed in doing things right. He ran operations for years, quietly keeping everything standing while my mother chased appearances. When I was 16, I watched that delicate balance collapse. I still remember the night my dad left, his eyes exhausted, suitcase by the door. He said he couldn't stay in a place where love had become a performance. The silence that followed him out the door was the kind that fills every corner and never, ever leaves. After that, Brenda remarried with sickening speed. She found Scott Miller, a smooth-talking consultant who spoke in buzzwords like synergy and global expansion. He was shiny, loud, and hollow, everything my mother thought success looked like. Not long after they got married, she sent me to live with Grandma, claiming it was for stability. I knew the truth. I was just one less witness to her charade. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like the outsider in your own family? It's a terrible feeling. And if you know what I mean, please hit that like button. It's a small sign that says, I get it. Life with Grandma was quiet, but it was never dull. Her home smelled of old books, cedar, and fresh coffee. She treated me not as a granddaughter, but as an apprentice. While I studied architecture for school, she showed me what legacy truly meant: discipline, risk, and the courage to start over. She'd trace the outlines of her original, hand-drawn blueprints, and say, every building tells a story, so fear the walls remember who built them, and why. I didn't fully understand it then, but she was teaching me how to build foundations within myself. Years passed, my mother's calls grew shorter. You should visit, she'd say. Scott wants to talk about the European market. I'd always have an exam. We were strangers, connected only by blood and legal paperwork. Until that morning, my 21st birthday, the day Grandma put the heavy leather folder on her desk and said, "This is your inheritance, Sophia, but it's also your test." I didn't know what she meant, not yet, but I was about to find out. Because sometimes the moment you receive everything you've ever wanted is the exact same moment you discover who's coming to take it all away. So, how long do you think it took for my mother and Scott to make their move? Do you think they even waited a day? Comment your guesses below and make sure you're subscribed, because you won't believe the audacity that comes next in part 3. So, how long do you think my mother and her husband, Scott, waited? Did they give me a week? A day? No, they didn't even give me 3 hours. That same night, my 21st birthday, Grandma and I were sitting down for celebratory dinner, roasted lamb, candlelight flickering across the long oak table, and Grandma smiling in that rare, peaceful way. For once, the house was quiet, filled only with the sound of silver against china. I remember thinking, just for a second, maybe things are finally steady. Then the doorbell rang. It was one of those small, insignificant sounds that changes absolutely everything. I got up, napkin still in my hand. When I opened the door, the chill from the porch hit me first, and then her perfume. My mother, Brenda, stood there in a cream coat, her hair curled just so, her smile stretched thin and glossy. Beside her was Scott, her consultant husband, wearing that smug confidence that always smelled like deceit. Sophia, my mother's voice dripped with a fake cheer. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. We were just in the area and thought we'd stop by." Behind me, I heard Grandma's chair scrape softly against the hardwood floor. They didn't wait to be invited in. Scott carried a lavish gift bag, the kind you give when you already know exactly what you want in return. My mother's eyes immediately darted around the dining room, bypassing me, bypassing Grandma, and landing right on the heavy leather folder still sitting on the table. My inheritance. "We heard about your big gift," she said, her tone trying for sugar but landing on poison. $50 million. How wonderful. I tried to stay polite. "It's not about the number." Grandma wanted me to continue what she started. My mother laughed, a light, airy sound that didn't match her eyes. Of course, but darling, running a business that size isn't for children. You'll need experience. You'll need guidance. She placed a manicured hand on Scott's arm. "That's why Scott and I thought we could manage it together. As a family, this is the moment, isn't it? When someone tries to gaslight you into giving up what's yours, all under the banner of helping you. Have you ever had someone in your life try to help you by completely taking over? It's the most infuriating, manipulative feeling in the world. If you know exactly what I'm talking about, hit that like button. Scott leaned forward, resting his hands on the back of a chair. It's too much for one person. Sophia, let us help. We've already drafted a proposal. Before I could even form a word, Grandma's voice sliced through his. A proposal for something that isn't yours. The air in the room didn't just get tense, it crackled. Scott's smile faltered. My mother shot Grandma a warning look. That same cold defiance she used to use on my dad. Mother, please, she said. Let's be practical, practical, Grandma repeated, as if tasting the word. Practical, like when you mortgaged the Burlington property without authorization. Or when you disappeared for 6 months to expand the brand and came back with nothing but debt. The color drained from my mother's face. That was years ago, yes, Grandma said softly. And I remember every single year it cost me. My mother turned back to me, her voice brittle and desperate. Sophia, don't let her turn you against me. We are family. I just stood there, caught in the crossfire. Grandma rose from her chair, resting a steady hand on my shoulder. Dinner's over, she said calmly. Some things aren't up for discussion. Scott, trying to regain control, cleared his throat and forced a smile. Of course, we'll talk again soon. But as the front door closed behind them, I caught the whisper my mother left hanging in the air. Quiet, venomous, and meant only for me. This isn't over. And she was right. It wasn't. What do you think they did next? Did they call a lawyer? Did they give up? Comment your predictions below. Because what they did the very next morning was a declaration of war. Make sure you're subscribed for part 4. My mother's threat, this isn't over, hung in the air all night. The next morning, the house didn't feel like home anymore. The light through the windows looked different, colder and thinner, as if the walls themselves knew what was coming, and they didn't wait. I came downstairs to find the breakfast table already occupied. My mother, Brenda, sat there with a cup of coffee she hadn't been offered, flipping through one of Grandma's old business ledgers as if it already belonged to her. Scott was pacing by the window, already on the phone, whispering phrases like potential restructuring and joint control. They didn't see me at first. For a second, I just watched them, 2 intruders, wearing family as camouflage. My mother finally looked up, her smile crisp and artificial. Morning, sweetheart. We were just brainstorming a few things. You know, how to keep the business stable. Stable? I asked, keeping my voice even. It's been stable for 50 years. She ignored the jab. You're young, Sophia. You have your studies, your friends. You don't need to stress about payrolls or legal documents. That's what family is for. Scott nodded, hanging up his call. His tone was oily. Let us take care of the boring parts. You just focus on your degree. I felt my pulse climb, but I said nothing. Instead, I walked over to the counter, poured myself a glass of juice, and let the silence stretch until it started to itch. Then, I turned to them. Does Grandma know you're here? My mother blinked, her lips tightening. She's resting, right? I said quietly. Then maybe you should let her rest. Their eyes followed me as I left the room, every step echoing like a dare. I went straight to Grandma's office. She didn't look surprised when I told her what I'd seen. She just sighed and said, I was hoping they'd at least pretend to wait a week. Do you want me to call the lawyers? I asked. She shook her head. Already did. She opened a locked drawer in her desk and pulled out a different folder, one identical to mine. There are things you don't know about your mother and Scott. Financial documents, deals that were meant to be hidden. My stomach tightened. Why didn't you tell me? Because, Grandma said, her eyes meeting mine. Sometimes the only way to teach someone how to defend what's theirs is to let them feel how easily it can be taken. We spent the rest of the day quietly preparing. Grandma was on the phone with her attorney. I combed through old files, labeling transactions that didn't add up. The evidence was all there. Payments, transfers, ghost accounts, failed projects. A clear pattern of them trying to siphon money and leverage from the company for years. This is the part of the story that just makes my blood boil. Have you ever discovered that someone you trusted was actively working against you? It's a level of betrayal that cuts deep. If you've ever dealt with a Scott or a Brenda in your life, share this video. You're not alone. By the time the sun set, the house smelled of old coffee and dusted paper. Grandma looked tired, but a calm, cold fury had settled in her eyes. Tomorrow, she said, we'll invite them back for dinner. A formal one. Let them think they've won. Let them think you're ready to negotiate. I nodded, finally understanding. If they wanted a stage, we'd give them one. But this time, the script was ours. What do you think is in that second folder? And what's Grandma's real plan for this dinner? Comment your most devious predictions below and make sure you're subscribed, because part 5 is the final performance. The invitation was Grandma's masterstroke. A polite message sent that morning. Dinner tonight. Let's discuss the transition properly. I watched her type every word with surgical precision. It was pure bait, dressed as a peace offering. By 6 p.m., the table was set again. The same polished oak surface, the same flickering candles. The house smelled of roasted garlic and quiet, electric tension. Grandma had changed into a dark navy dress, the one she wore only for formal negotiations. Her expression gave away nothing. Stay calm, she whispered as she placed a silver folder, the other folder, beside my plate. Let them talk first. At 7 sharp, headlights swept across the graveled driveway. The front door opened without a knock. My mother entered first, her heels clicking on the hardwood like a metronome of entitlement. She wore a bold red dress, the color of control. Scott followed close behind, his tie loosened, a wide, predatory grin on his face. Mother, my mom said sweetly, kissing the air near Grandma's cheek. Sophia, her voice was smooth, but sharp underneath, like glass wrapped in velvet. I'm so glad we're doing this properly. Family decisions deserve transparency, Scott added, his eyes flicking toward the silver folder by my hand. Dinner began in a polite, chilling silence. Plates passed, wine was poured. I could feel their impatience radiating across the table. My mother's fingers drummed on her wine glass. Funnily, she couldn't resist. So, let's be honest, she said, setting down her fork. Managing a business of this scale is complex. It's unreasonable to expect a 21-year-old to handle it alone. Grandma sipped her wine, saying nothing. Scott leaned forward, his voice dripping with false confidence. We've already outlined a plan. I'll handle financial optimization. Brenner will oversee PR and brand expansion. And Sophia, he smiled at me. Well, she can shadow us for a while, learn the ropes. Can you believe the sheer audacity? They weren't even asking, they were telling me. They wanted me to be an intern in my own company. If this kind of entitlement makes your blood boil, hit that like button right now. I set my fork down. You mean I'd sign the ownership over to you both? And you'd manage it? My mother's smile grew wider. It would benefit everyone. We're family, after all. That word again, you're right. I said quietly, we're family. Good. Then let's, which is why I cut in, my voice sharp. It's time we stop pretending this is about love. Her expression froze. I pushed the silver folder toward the center of the table. You wanted transparency. Fine. Let's start with this. Scott reached for it, but Grandma's hand moved faster. She opened the folder, her fingers tracing the first page. These, Grandma said, her voice dangerously calm. Our bank statements from the Burlington account. Withdrawals made under your signature. Brenda. Funds that never returned. My mom's face went white. Mother, that's absurd, Grandma continued, turning the page. And these are emails from Mr. Miller's consulting firm. Proposals for overseas expansion projects that don't exist. Signed by both of you. Scott's jaw clenched. You had no right to. I had every right, Grandma interrupted, her voice turning. To steal, you tried to mortgage my core hotels under shell companies. You thought I wouldn't notice. The air was so thick I could barely breathe. My mother's eyes darted to me, filled with a new, desperate rage. Sophia, this isn't true. She's twisting things. You can't possibly believe her. But I didn't need to answer. Grandma slid one last document across the table. The ownership amendment, she said, effective immediately. All control transfers solely to Sophia Bennett. You are both hereby removed from every board and every trust. The silence was absolute. Then came the explosion. My mother shot up from her chair, her voice cracking. This is my legacy, my life. You can't just hand it to her. You handed it away yourself, Grandma said. Still seated. No, my mother shouted, pointing a trembling finger at me. You think you've won? You're a child playing grown-up. You'll drown in paperwork before the month's out. I met her glare, maybe. But at least it'll be my mess. Her lip trembled. Then pack your bags and leave this house, she spat, the same threat as before. And that's when Grandma laughed. It was a soft, knowing chuckle that sliced the air clean. You're right, Brenda, she said, her voice suddenly light. Someone is leaving this house tonight. But it's not Sophia. What does Grandma mean? What's her final move? Comment your predictions. Because the finale in part 6 is on a checkmate you've been waiting for. Subscribe so you don't miss it. The silence in the room was absolute. My mother's threat, pack your bags, was still hanging in the air. But Grandma's soft laugh had just shattered it. You're right, Brenda, Grandma said, her voice dangerously calm. Someone is leaving this house tonight. But it's not Sophia. My mother's face contorted in confusion. What are you talking about? You can't throw me out. Oh, I'm not, Grandma said. She reached calmly into her purse, past her reading glasses and her leather wallet, and pulled out another envelope. This one wasn't a gift. It wasn't an inheritance. It was a court order. You've both been served, Grandma said, placing it on the table. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. You see, while you were drafting your little proposal to take over, I was on the phone with my investigators. They're waiting outside. Scott's face went a shade of gray I'd never seen before. He stumbled back, shaking his head. You called the police. I called for justice, Grandma said simply. My mother just stared at the envelope, then at Grandma, her breath coming in ragged gasps. You wouldn't, she whispered, her voice finally breaking. You wouldn't? I'm your daughter. I am your daughter. Grandma's face, etched with a lifetime of patience, finally hardened. No, she said, her voice soft but final. You were, until you decided to sell this family's name for a mirror and a title, until you tried to steal your own daughter's future. As if summoned, two uniformed officers entered the dining room. Their presence was polite, but final. Scott didn't fight. He just stared at the floor, a completely hollowed out man, as they led him out. But my mother, she fought. She screamed. She called me a traitor. She called Grandma a monster. It was ugly and raw and desperate. When the front door finally closed, the silence that fell was different. It was lighter, cleaner, the kind that heals instead of haunts. I sank into my chair, my hands trembling. Grandma placed her hand over mine. I'm sorry you had to see that, Sophia. No, I whispered, looking at the empty plates. I needed to. I stood and walked to the window, outside. The red and blue lights painted the driveway as the last car disappeared. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't even feel relief. Just a deep, quiet ache for the family we could have been. Grandma joined me, her reflection beside mine in the glass. You did good, Sophia, she said. You didn't raise your voice. You raised your worth. The news, of course, spread like fire. Scott disappeared before the investigation could even close, likely fleeing the country. My mother, Brenda, stayed just long enough to watch her name unravel. The fraud case stripped her of everything: her money, her position, and the pride she valued over all of us. Weeks later, life began to look almost ordinary again. I graduated from my architecture program, top of my class. Grandma insisted we celebrate on the rooftop of the flagship hotel. No press, no guests, just us. As the city lights glowed below, she raised her glass to new foundations. She said, and as I looked out, I realized that was my real inheritance. It wasn't the $50 million. It wasn't the hotels. It was the freedom to build my own foundation. I used to believe legacy was about bloodlines and last names, but now I know it's about boundaries. It's the courage to end what's toxic, even when it wears your own DNA. If you've ever had to choose to build your own peace, even if it meant leaving family behind, I want you to know you're not alone. Share your story of strength in the comments below. And thank you for watching.